Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to talk about something very common that happens in our immigration practice: DIY immigration applications. DIY means do-it-yourself on immigration. This means preparing and submitting your own application without professional assistance from a licensed immigration consultant or a lawyer. And please understand me right, there is nothing wrong with preparing your own application and wanting to understand the process yourself. In fact, every applicant should understand what they're signing and submitting to IRCC. The concern starts when a person relies only on Google, social media, forums, or someone else's experience without fully understanding how immigration rules apply to their own situation. Sometimes the portal accepts the application. Sometimes the checklist looks complete. Sometimes everything seems just fine until months later the application is refused, or inconsistency appears, or the same mistake affects a future PR application. Today, I will walk you through the hidden risks of DIY immigration applications, starting with those that may seem less significant and moving towards the more serious and potentially damaging mistakes. We have prepared a list of 10 most common hidden risks of DIY immigration application. And the 10th place goes to uploading too many documents without explanation. This might not sound like a serious problem, but it can still hurt the application. Many people think that more documents they upload, the stronger the application becomes. They include bank statements, pictures, screenshots, letters, business documents, tickets, school documents, property papers, and everything else they can find. But the officer is not supposed to solve a puzzle. If the documents are not organized and there is no clear explanation, the officer may not understand what each document is supposed to prove. For example, if you're applying for a visitor visa and you upload 100 pages of documents but do not explain your purpose of visit, your ties, your finances, and your reasons to return, the officer may still not be satisfied. The problem is not only the number of documents. The problem is lack of structure. A strong application is not just thick, it has to be clear for the officer and easy to navigate your application. In the 9th place, submitting too little evidence. This is the opposite mistake. Some applicants upload only the mandatory documents from the checklist and believe that if IRCC needs more, they will ask. But in many cases, IRCC will not ask. The officer may simply make a decision based on what was submitted. For example, someone applying for a visitor visa may upload only a passport, a bank statement, and an invitation letter, but they do not include proof of employment, family ties, property, previous travels, purpose of visit, or explanation of their overall situation. Then the refusal says, "I'm not satisfied that you will leave Canada in the end of your stay." The applicant is confused because they believe they submitted everything the portal requested. But the checklist is not the full legal test. The officer must be satisfied that the person meets the requirement. On the 8th place, relying on Google, forums, or someone else's success story. This one is very common. Someone says, "My friend applied with the same documents and got approved." But immigration is never exactly the same. Your friend may have stronger travel history, a higher income, a different country of residence, no previous refusals, stronger family ties, a different officer, and different timing. One person's approval does not mean your application will be approved with the same package. For example, one parent may get a visitor visa to attend a child's graduation with a very simple application because they have strong ties and travel history. Another parent with a pending PR application, weak employment ties, and previous refusals may need a much stronger explanation. Online information can be useful, but it can also be incomplete or misleading. The 7th place goes to choosing the easiest looking pathway instead of the correct one. Sometimes applicants choose the pathway that looks fastest or simplest, but not the one that actually fits their situation best. For example, a person may choose to make a refugee claim simply because it appears to be more direct or more accessible than other complex applications such as HNC. In some cases, people may think HNC is complicated, difficult to prepare, and takes a long time, so maybe a refugee claim is easier. But this can be a very dangerous approach if the person does not genuinely meet the refugee protection requirements. A refugee claim is not a general pathway to stay in Canada because life is difficult in home country or because the person has established themselves in Canada. There is a protection-based claim, and it requires specific evidence of risks, persecution, and/or danger that fits the legal test. On the other hand, an HNC application is usually more complex and requires a strong package showing establishment in Canada, hardship, family circumstances, the best interests of any children involved, and other compassionate factors. But if the person's situation is really based on those factors, maybe the HNC is more appropriate pathway to assess. Choosing a refugee claim only because it looks faster or easier can create serious long-term consequences if the claim is refused, including removal proceedings and a more complicated immigration history. This is another example of why the easiest looking option is not always the correct one. The right pathway must be selected based on the facts, the legal requirements, and long-term immigration consequences. Sixth place, go to not understanding dual intent. Dual intent is one of the most misunderstanding concepts in Canadian immigration. Some people think that if they have PR application in process, they cannot apply for a visitor visa, study permit, or work permit. Other people think that because dual intent exists, RCC must approve the temporary application. Both are wrong. Dual intent means that a person can have a future permanent residence intention and a temporary intention at the same time, but the applicant still has to show that they will respect the temporary conditions if the temporary application is approved. Example, a person has a startup visa PR application in process and wants to come to Canada temporarily for business meetings. This can be reasonable, but the application must clearly disclose the PR application and explain why the visit is temporary, what person will do in Canada, how long they will stay, and why they will comply with the conditions. Dual intent is not a magic word, it must be properly explained. In the fifth place, using the wrong NOC. This is a big one, especially for express entry, provincial nominee programs, employer-specific work permits, and LMIA-based cases. NOC stands for National Occupational Classification. It is the system Canada uses to classify occupations. Each occupation has its own NOC code, description, leave statements, main duties, and employment requirements. You may also hear the term tier. Tier stands for Training, Education, Experience, and Responsibilities. For many immigration programs, the tier level is very important because not every occupation qualifies for every pathway. Many people choose the NOC based only on the job title. But RCC does not look only at a title, they look at the actual duties. For example, someone may have the title Marketing Manager, but their duties may be also closer to sales, administration, or graphic design. Another person may have the title Project Manager, but they may not actually perform the main duties required under the Project Manager NOC. This is why the job title alone is not enough. The officer needs to see that the applicant's actual duties match the lead statement and main duties of the selected NOC. If the NOC is wrong, the officer may refuse the application even if the person genuinely worked in this position. This is especially serious when the applicant is claiming points for skilled work experience in the express entry. So before choosing a right NOC, you should carefully compare the actual job duties with the official NOC description. The question is not what is my title. The real question is what did I actually do in this position. Number 4. Weak proof of work experience. This is where many permanent residence applications become vulnerable. The person may say, I worked there for 3 years. I know I did the job, but RCC does not know that. The officer needs proof. A proper employment letter usually needs to include the job title, dates of employment, hours per week, salary, duties, company details, and supervisor or HR contact information. A letter that only says this person worked for our company from 2020 to 2023 is usually not enough for skilled work experience. The duties are extremely important. Example, if someone is claiming experience as a restaurant manager, the officer must see managerial duties such as supervising staff, managing schedules, handling inventory, dealing with suppliers, overseeing operations, ensuring customer service standards. Another issue is cash-paid work. Cash-paid work is not automatically impossible to claim, but it is harder to prove. If there are no tax documents, no payslips, no bank deposits, and no official records, the officer may question whether the work was real, whether it was full-time, and whether the duties were actually performed. This does not always mean the case is impossible, but it means the evidence must be much stronger. We're almost there. On the third place, inconsistent information between applications. This is one of the most dangerous silent problems. Many applicants do not realize that each application becomes part of their immigration history. You may submit a visitor visa today, a study permit next year, a work permit later, and PR after that. If the information changes without explanation, RCC may notice. Example, in one application you say you were unemployed from 2020 to 2022. Later in express entry, you claim skilled work experience for the same period. Another example, one resume says you worked as a sales manager from 2018 to 2021, but the employment letter says business development manager from 2017 to 2022. Maybe there is a simple explanation. Maybe the title changed. Maybe the resume was simplified. Maybe it was an honest mistake, but if it is not explained, it can create credibility concerns. The officer may ask, which version is true? Inconsistencies do not always mean refusal, but they can damage trust in the application. The second place goes to misunderstanding status, visas, permit, and work conditions. This is especially important for people already inside Canada. Many people confuse a visa, a permit, and legal status. A visa allows you to travel to Canada and request entry. A permit authorizes you to study or work and remain inside Canada under specific conditions. Your status is your legal permission to be inside Canada. These are not the same thing. For example, someone may have a valid visitor visa in the passport, but their visitor status in Canada has expired. That is a problem. Another example. Someone applies to extend a work permit before expiry and believes they can travel and keep working the same way. But living in Canada while an extension is pending may affect the ability to continue working upon return. And finally, the first place goes to the one and only misrepresentation. This is the most serious risk in any immigration application. Misrepresentation can include providing false information, hiding important information, submitting altered documents, exaggerating work experience, using a letter that does not reflect the real duties, or failing to disclose facts that could affect the decision. One of the most common examples is not disclosing previous visa refusals, denied entries, removal orders, refugee claims, or other immigration history. Some applicants believe that if a refusal happened many years ago, if it was from another country, it's not important. Others think that if they do not mention it, RTC will not know. This is a very dangerous assumption. If the form asks whether you have ever been refused a visa, denied entry, ordered to leave, or removed from Canada, or any other country, you must answer truthfully. A previous refusal or migration issue does not automatically mean that a new application will be refused. In many cases, it can be explained, but failing to disclose it can become much more serious than the refusal itself. For example, a person may have had a previous US visa refusal and decide not to mention it in Canadian application. The Canadian application may have been otherwise approvable, but the failure to disclose the refusal can create a serious credibility issue. Another serious example is submitting falsified or altered financial documents such as bank statement, employment income records, or proof of funds. Sometimes applicants believe they are only improving the appearance of the application but showing the stronger finances. But this can create a very serious issue. If RCC determines that a financial document was altered or does not reflect the real financial situation, the concern is no longer only about whether the applicant has enough money. It becomes a credibility and misrepresentation issue. Misrepresentation does not always require a person to intentionally lie. Even an omission or incorrect answer can create a problem if the information is irrelevant to the application. A difficult fact can often be explained. A hidden fact can create a much bigger problem. That is why honesty, consistency, and full disclosure are absolutely critical in Canadian immigration applications. The main message is this: DIY immigration is not automatically wrong, but it becomes risky when the case is complex, when there is previous immigration history, or when the evidence is weak. Canadian immigration is not just about filling out the forms. It is about presenting a complete, truthful, and consistent, well-supported case. If your situation is simple, you may be able to apply on your own with careful preparation. But if your situation involves previous refusals, a pending PR application, or complex work history, it is better to get proper advice before submitting. It is usually easier to prevent a problem than to fix one after refusal. If you have questions about your situation or would like to explore your options, I would be happy to meet you personally and assist you and your family with your Canadian immigration journey. Book a consultation with our team today and use promo code IMMIGRATE20 to receive 20% off your consultation.